All right, so today, yesterday we did Pele's warming ritual, warming spell that we showed could be used in different ways. Today we're doing something that is more of a binding. I have a friend who's got some issues going on with some a bit of local government, so we are going to be acting on that, and this represents what I'm doing here, right? Now I have already called Hiiaka to talk to her about this, and she has not expressed any regrets or misgivings on performing the ritual. So for some reason I felt I should get this little ravenite here, some aura stone, currently without a spirit in it, but I wanted it near for some reason, so there we are. All right, so what are you going to need for this? For Hiiaka's unbinding ritual or binding ritual, depends on how you do it here. We could present, well, I'll present the binding version, and then I'll tell you how I would do the unbinding, because the intent really is what's important. So what we're doing here is, it is another hybrid ritual, and this hybrid ritual will involve a bit of petition and a bit of work on our from us personally. So we are asking Hiiaka to bind, in this case, some local government stuff going on that I've spoken to her plainly about, and for whom. And then we will be using this candle, the green here, because that's my color for Hiiaka, to then act as both an offering and a working in its own, in a way, combined with this paper. So as I stated in the other ones, none of the Polynesians have sigils or seals that were ever written down by anybody else. Well, I guess by anybody. That would include anybody else, right? And so I have symbols that I use that they've agreed to use on my behalf, and for those that use Pele's grimoire. So what I use for Hiiaka is a stem, and then 3 leaves and 3 thorns, right? Now the placement of the thorns is what's going to be most important here, because we're going to draw longer thorns than we normally would to kind of seal up that object, almost like you're sealing it up inside of a briar patch, so it doesn't really want to go anywhere. And that's kind of what we're doing here. And that's the imagery you should have in your head, and that's what we're going to do. So if you've already seen the Pele ritual, then you will understand how this one's going to go. I like to keep my rituals pretty simple. Just like last night's, which was Pele's, I ask and get an agreement from the entity before I do the ritual. That way things can be worked out in advance, and we don't like surprises at ritual time, right? They happen, but that doesn't mean we got to, doesn't mean we can't prevent those that we can, right? So let's go ahead and get started. What we will need this piece of paper. We need our intent, which I have here. Something to draw with. It doesn't matter if it's fancy or not. I've got full pens in here, but these are for curling lilies, origami lilies, that I then stick on a stem and then sew. So lance it with blood. As I said yesterday, I do use blood. I don't have a problem with that. We say blood, sweat, and tears, and I take that literally, because I've used all 3 quite literally for a lot of things. So blood, sweat, and tears. And then we have our candle. This is just a simple 4-inch chime candle. It's not special on its own. I got this off of Amazon from a box. I think I got like a box of 20 for like $10 or something like that. I've got a box of 40 over there that was like 20 bucks. So, I mean, that works. But I still have these. So here we go. All right. We got that. We've got our little burn bowl. So we're not going to scorch anything. And as I said yesterday, this is a baking stone, so we can withstand the temperature that I'm burning it against. Otherwise, I might cause some problems because these are just curtains that I'm using to cover this hardwood table, which was gifted to me. That's it. First thing we've done, the first thing I did was I went ahead and contacted Hiiaka. You can do this through intent, and if you get, you can get reception back from that. You can use a pendulum, tarot, whatever you want, but my clairsentience is by far my strongest. So I literally just reach out and make a connection that way, and then see, okay, is this an acceptable procedure or not for them, or is there something I should be wary of or similar? I didn't get that, so here we go. It's going to be very obvious that I am not an artist, and you don't have to be either. So now if you are, then good for you. It's not going to be real or lifelike, but you'll notice here that I usually put a curve here, and there's a reason, a sharper curve in the beginning here. If you see my other ritual videos, it'll look pretty similar, but they may just be a little bit more wave-like instead of this hard curve here. This area right here is actually where we're going to put this intent, these symbols. That's where we're going to put this, and there's a reason for that. So here, I don't normally care where the placement of the leaves are. I just kind of go with it. I usually just do 3 on each side because it's not a real representation, so I'm not usually worried about that. I've never had one rejected. Curved in, curved out, that doesn't matter here. That will with the thorns. We're going to get to that. And I am mindful that all these things that I draw, I am going to then try to cover with this candle. But you need to leave some open space over here, like I said yesterday, because if you don't, it can get have too much wax on it, and then it doesn't act as, it doesn't burn quite as well, right? Because the wax that gets put on here is eventually going to burn, but this paper acts more like a larger wick, if you will, for it. So we have the general shape, not pretty, but it doesn't have to be, it'll work. So what we'll do here is we will make our best representation of this request. Okay. Close enough. Like I said, she has already agreed to it, so I'm less concerned that it has to look pretty, because normally with sigilization, your intent would be to forget about it over time. But with this, we don't necessarily have to do that because it's the hybrid approach. So what we're going to do instead, we've got her stuff drawn. We know she's accepted it, but what I'm going to do though is I'm now going to directly, intentionally imprint this paper with the intent that I want. Okay. Now, we've done that. What's next? Well, we have the blooding, but I usually prefer to charge the candle because once it has blood on it, I consider it really the offering. So I need to charge this candle because that's partially how I'm paying for this. This isn't necessarily gratuity on their part, right? It can be. I'm not saying that she wouldn't do it without it, but that's not how I like to do it. And like I said, this is for a friend, and if it doesn't work out, then I would kind of think, okay, well, maybe I should have done that. But I expect that it will. So this actually is just one part of a multi-part prong. The rest of the stuff doesn't really apply to Pele's grimoire. So here we go. Okay. All right, so we've got our symbol. We've got our intent. We've imprinted the paper with intent. We've energized the candle to act as an offering. And the blood is just kind of like icing on the cake, right? So there we go. Let's do this. Okay. Thumb. And I normally call this finger painting, but I'm doing it with my thumb. But my intent is to just cover the ink, and that's kind of what I'm going to do with the candle too. If you haven't seen the other one, so I guess you could say my intent is to get outside of the lines a bit. I'm not going to miss these drops. Now, if it's something pretty serious, or I'm just kind of in the mood, or similar, I have covered entire pages like this before, several. Just using lancets and applying the blood in specific spots. You can kind of milk it out in different ways too. There we go. Okay. All right. So we've made the larger offering on here, right? Now, we go in and we put the thorns in to kind of hold it in place. And as you do that, you envision it drawing blood as it does so. Sometimes I'll draw just a little dotted line as a visual representation of it, but you don't have to. Okay. And now it has been thorned and coated with blood. Okay. Good, good, good. There we go. Okay. Now, and as I stated in yesterday's video with Pele, I leave this bottom part right here free so I can turn the candle as I need to, although I did forget my tweezers this time. I'll have to go get those. It's pretty close. All right. And really the blood is the icing on the cake. All right, tweezers. Here we go. Just to be safe. So as you can see, I actually got a fair amount of blood out of that, just one little stick. I did use, 26 gauge? Yeah. This is a Rely-On, it's the same brand, a Rely-On's Lancet holder. I forget what they would probably call like an applicator or something, some fancy ass word that I don't particularly give a shit about. All right, so, oops, there goes my lighter. There goes my other lighter. God damn it. All right, so what we're going to do now is we are going to light this candle. And just like yesterday, we are going to turn it to let it drip over. I like to drip over the ink. And then if the page is large enough, like I said yesterday, steno pages are just not quite large enough for things this size. And this is a pretty typical size for working like this. But I cover the ink. Okay. Now, as you notice here, the page, you might not be able to see it, the page is warping a little bit right here. It will, both from the wax and from the blood a little bit. But the wax kind of contracts when it cools. So it is going to kind of pull the page in. It's really not a big deal at all. Doesn't matter. In fact, I've been asked why do I drip the candle like this, and part of it is because I'm thinking of the intent as I'm doing this. So there's more time and energy still put into it in doing so. Because the wax is the wax is the wax. They're not going to get more wax out of it just because we're doing this, but they will get more time and energy into it. Now the tweezers over there are, as you probably have guessed, as you melt wax, the candle gets shorter. So that allows us to still have a way to turn it, because sometimes you use larger pages than this, or more involved pages than this. Or the wind is blowing, and so the wax is just melting faster. So it just kind of gets smaller faster than you would suspect. And so that allows you to keep turning it without getting burnt. Now, if you enjoy getting burnt, then it's on you. So when the page is curled up like this, a lot of times I'll go to the top and then start working down, because the wax will kind of melt along the way, drip down a bit. Yeah, there. As you can see, the candle's already much smaller than it was to begin with. Yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to cover all the ink or anything like that. This is just you continuing to put your intent and attention towards the working. So as you can see, this is getting kind of small, right? We'll have to switch over to use the tweezers before long. Okay, that's good enough. There we go. There. Can't go down much further. All right, now this was the original intent, so go ahead and put that in here. Okay. Now, since that was the ritual candle, and that was the ritual offering, if you will, then we will go ahead and use that same candle to light the paper. Now, you will want to put it in something like this because the wax is going to drain downwards. If you have a candle, say, right up against this thing or near it, it will start to melt it prematurely. So now you can see the paper is burnt. The flame is actually the wax. All right, this is going to burn a while. You can still see, you might be able to see that there's a lot of wet wax in the bottom. You know, specifically over here, you can see it. So I will go ahead and end the video here because you get the idea. But I will let that wax burn out on its own. The candle will burn out on its own. But at this point, the ritual is essentially done, and I'm just watching over the fires before I cause myself a bad day, right? So there you go. There is a binding method for Hiiaka. You can use that as an unbinding or a binding method. Just put the intent where the thorns are, thorns away if it's an unbinding, and thorns in if it is a binding. So there we go. Hope you enjoyed it. Happy binding.